think when I did the Fantastic Four, we didn't have any superheroes. We mainly had monster books at that time. So one day he said to me, Stan, I think we ought to get into superheroes because the Superman company is doing pretty well. So I came up with the Fantastic Four. We didn't think it was going to be anything that sensational. It sold well. So he said, hey, give me another superhero. So, you know, I came up with whatever it was, the X-Men or the Hulk, I can't remember the order of them. But each time I did it, I was just dreaming something up to hold my job. Because before that, he would say, I want a Western book. So I came up with the Black Rider and the Outlaw Kid and God knows what. Or he'd say, I want a teenage book. So I came up with Millie the Model and Tessie the Typist and Nellie the Nurse. I was in a rut with those names. And, so again, it didn't feel like anything special, except after a while the books caught on. And people started talking about them, and and that's when I decided to change the name of the company. We were called, I think, Atlas at the time, and I figured we need a better name. And all of a sudden, we really have fans, which I never felt we had before. So the very first book that Martin Goodman had ever published years ago was called Marvel Mystery Comics. And it had the Human Torch and the Submariner and a character called the Angel and a few others I don't remember in it. So I thought Marvel was a good word. And I love advertising. I figured I could use a name like Marvel for catchphrases like, make mine Marvel, Marvel marches on. Welcome to the Marvel world of comics. I loved the name and we called the line Marvel Comics. National Comics, which at that time was doing Superman and Batman, they decided if we're changing our name, they're going to change theirs. They hired a guy. I didn't know you could hire name changes. They found a guy and they paid him money to come up with a good name. And what did he come up with? DC Comics. So we had Marvel, and they had DC. I mean, it was really funny. And that's the most long-winded answer I'll bet you've ever gotten to a simple question. I'm looking over there. It sounded like the question came from there. It probably came from there. I have no way of knowing.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Tyler, and I was wondering if there's any inspiration for your characters, or if they were all spontaneous.
Any inspiration? Nobody says so. I didn't hear you. Oh, inspiration for the character. The only inspiration. Oh, that's where you are. There's a line over there. I didn't see it. The only inspiration really was greed. I had to pay the rent every month, and I needed the job and I needed the money. I don't know what inspiration is. I'm not the kind of guy that walks down the street and suddenly I'll say, wow, I have a great idea for a character. Because frankly, I didn't like to write that much, and when I wasn't actually writing, it was the last thing I was thinking of. But when Martin would say to me, I need another character, I'd go home and I'd scratch my head and look at the wall and start thinking. And it's easy because all you have to do is think of something that hasn't been done yet. Once you do that, you've got your character right. So that's the secret. I really, truly don't know how to answer that question because I've always been lucky. If I had to think of something, I was able to think of it, and that's what I did. And I never thought about thinking of it. I just thought of it and wrote it and hoped people would like it. That's all. I wish there was a more profound answer I could give you.
Hi, I was just wondering, of all the characters you made, I was just wondering which one you are mostly like.
Which one is my favorite character that I've done?
No, sorry. I mean, which one are they like? Are you similar to?
Oh, which am I similar to?
Yeah.
Oh, I have the best qualities of all of them. Oh, I don't know, honey. I've never thought of it. I guess, well, let's say I talk as much as Reed Richards and bore everybody in sight. I have the temper of the Hulk. I'm not really an alcoholic, so I can't be that much like Iron Man. And I'm probably as adorable as the Silver Surfer.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. It's probably late awake nights thinking of a question that I wouldn't be able to answer.
Hello, my name is Caleb. I like the comment short. I really love your interview with Kevin Smith when he interviewed all of your favorite moments on your Marvel Universe. And among all the alternative Marvel Universe comics, I still prefer your original story the best.
Now that isn't really a question.
Here's my question now. What is your response to some people that are doing the alternate Marvel Universe to those that did not make their comics a big hit?
All I can say is, as the editor of the comic magazines, Joe Quesada, and all his other editors are faced with a very serious problem. When you do a lot of copies of characters a month after month after month, no matter how well you do them, you're afraid at some point the readers are going to get bored. And you have to bring out new angles, new interpretations, new ways to present the characters. And they do that just to keep the interest up. I very much appreciate you saying that you like mine the best. I admire your taste and judgment.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I really can't comment about it knowledgeably because in all honesty, I don't have the time to read the comics today. I haven't read a comic with a Marvel, DC, or anything in a few years. I mean, sometimes somebody will show me one and say, hey Stan, look at this guy's artwork, he's great, and things like that, but I just don't have the time to read them. In fact, I look at the covers all the time because they send them to me and I try to at least see what's being published. And it's a funny feeling. There are always the names of the artists and the writers on the cover, and they're all names that I don't know. And years ago, I knew everybody in the business, and now they're all strange names. And again, I'm off the track. I'm not answering your question, but again, I admire your judgment. Thanks a lot.
I appreciate it. Sorry to see you here, Mr. Stan.
Hello, my name is Mary. I was just wondering, what was your initial reaction to having some of your comic book characters made into live-action films?
To have them turned into live-action films?
Mm-hmm.
I was thrilled, I really was, and those live-action films have absolutely changed the industry. They've changed the world of entertainment. And DC is just as responsible as we with their first Superman movie, with their Batman movies. We've just been lucky we've had more that were hits. But somehow or other, take a convention, take a comic book convention like this. Those of you who remember the early conventions, they were usually a lot of young kids, occasionally a few adults who were dragged along by the young kid because The kid was too young to come here alone. Now you come to one of these conventions and they're all adults. There's occasionally a kid that the adult brings with him when he couldn't find a babysitter. It's totally reversed itself. And one of the reasons is comic book conventions now have almost been taken over by Hollywood, by the networks, and by the gaming companies. So, again, I forgot what the question. What was the goddamn question? Well, whatever it was. The point is that everything has changed so, but the comic books have profited by all of this. They've gained a lot more respect, and people who would never touch a comic are now reading them. And I mentioned earlier about how tough it is to get a writing job. It's because of the popularity of comic, because of the fact that so many movies are based on comic book stories. That's the reason that so many professional writers, novelists and TV writers and so forth, want to write comics. They figure, boy, I'll write a comic book, it'll be good, MGM will see it, or Disney or Warner Brothers, they'll want to make a movie out of it. It's easier than writing a whole script and having to show it to somebody. So, the movies have changed the entertainment world, and it's all originally because of the comics. And I hope I've answered your question. I think I've been very profound about the whole thing.
Yeah, you have. And I also think you have a really brilliant mind, and you're a genius.
I missed the next phrase, and I think I should have heard it. Oh, I knew I should have heard it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, my name's Jason. The first I have to say, you are God. My question is, what did you think about Disney buying Marvel, and how do you feel about going to the manga anime section with Ultimo and Hero Man?
Well, Ultimo and Hero, well, let's start at the beginning. I think Marvel being bought by Disney is a wonderful thing. You know, I have I Twitter or tweet or whatever you call it. But what do you call it, a tweet site? I don't know. But anyway, a lot of my Twitter followers have been in the beginning wrote, we think it's terrible that Disney bought Marvel. Now Spider-Man is going to have Mickey Mouse ears. And, you know, it's really great because there is no company, there's no movie company anywhere that's better at marketing and promotion and advertising and distribution than Disney is. There's no comic book company, as far as I'm concerned, that's better at doing great stories than Marvel. So Disney isn't going to interfere with Marvel. Marvel is working autonomously, just as they ever did. But now they have all of the power of Disney to help them in the distribution, the promotion, the advertising, the marketing. But the guys at Disney, they're brilliant, they're intelligent, they're not going to mess with a good thing, they're not going to change what Marvel does. So it's a perfect situation, it's a perfect marriage. And because of that, I think the Marvel movies will be even more successful than they've been in the past. Was there a second part to that? The Japanese. It's funny. There's a Japanese cartoonist who's one of the most famous cartoonists. Oh, great, I forgot his name. Anyway, you had to take my word for it. And he contacted me, or his people contacted me, and would I like to write a manga story, and he would illustrate it. And I said, I'll come up with the idea. I'll give you the characters and the concept, but I won't have time to write it after that. They said, that's okay, he'll write it also. He's a writer as well as an artist. And he's very talented, the man is brilliant. I could kick myself, I don't remember his name. Anyway, so we agreed to do that, and I came up with something called Hero Man. And I gave him the idea, and we had a lot of video conferences back and forth, and I was very impressed with myself that all these Japanese people were video conferencing me. And then I forgot about it, and he did the book. All of a sudden, it became one of the best sellers in Japan. It's one of the biggest selling comic books. And they sent me copies of it, and I don't know what the hell I'm looking at. It's so different than anything we do. And it's even a little hard for me to understand, even though I originally came up with it. So, but I understand that in Japan they seem to like it, and they published an American edition of it, which you can buy wherever they sell those kind of books here in America. And if you like it, great. If you don't like it, it's not my fault, because I'm not writing it. But it's doing very well. Then we had another thing. Another company asked me if I would work with them on an animated cartoon. So I came up with something. You know, I think I gave you the wrong information. The book that's being done as a comic book is called Ultimo, not Hero Man, Ultimo. The animated cartoon is called Hero Man. And I gave that to this company, and they've done it as an animated cartoon. And it's very successful in Japan. And now it's being considered by one of the networks here as a cartoon. They're going to do it in English. So I'm kind of excited about that, especially because one of the characters was drawn to look like me. So I'll have a cameo. Oh, I even have a cameo in Ultimo.
Yeah, you're the guy who creates all the characters.
There's a man who knows. I should have let you answer the question. You probably know more about it than I do. Anyway, that's the story with Ultimo and Hero Man, and they were a lot of fun, and I get a big kick out of it.
Thanks for answering my question. And again, you are God.
I have to thank you for all the characters you created that inspired me to conquer my high-functioning autism. I wouldn't even be here standing at the microphone in the first step.
I genuinely appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I have to ask, what would your opinion be if someone did tastefully create a superhero team of people with disabilities like autism and Down syndrome?
I heard that. I heard that. He speaks very clearly. If it could be done, it would be a great idea. I didn't go that far. I tried a little bit. I came up with a blind superhero, Daredevil. And I came up with a guy who had a bad heart, Tony Stark. But I never thought to go as far as what you're suggesting. You know, I'm going to think about that and talk to some people back at the office, and who knows, maybe we'll... I think that's worth looking into, and thank you for the suggestion. All
right. My name is Mohib, and first I'd like to say your work has influenced culture in ways no one else can say they have. The world would not be the way it is today, and I thank you for that.
The world isn't that great today. Read the papers. Now you're blaming that on me?
It would be worse off without you.
Okay, thank you.
My question is, and I might get condemned for this one, who is your favorite DC character if you had to choose, and what Marvel superhero could take him down?
You know, who is my favorite DC character, you said? And
yes.
What Marvel? Yeah, okay. Boy, my hearing is getting better. I think Phoenix here recently. God bless Phoenix. Let me think about that for a second. First of all, I have to confess something to you. I am asked so often, and I had been even more when I was doing the comics, Hey, Stan, if Thor and the Hulk had a fight, who'd win? You know, if the Thing had a fight, so-and-so, who'd win? And I always give them the same answer. It depends on who's writing the story. You wrote it. It depends on who the writer wants to win, that's all. As far as my favorite Marvel, DC, you know who my favorite DC character was? And I can't even remember his name. He was a character, a few years ago, they were making a number of books of him, I don't know if they're still... He was like an alien who was very tough, and he was more of a villain than a hero. And the artwork was beautiful, and he was a mangy, rotten, very powerful guy. What was it? Lobo? Something Lobo, something like that. You know who I mean? Well, I thought he was one of the most original characters that DC had. I loved him when I was looking at him. So, I know you didn't expect that. You thought I'd say Superman or Batman or the Green Lantern. I did write a series of books for DC some years ago about how I would have created those characters if I had done them, so I did my version. I never thought DC would ask me to do that, but they did. So I did my version of Superman and Batman, blah, blah, blah. And I think a lot of those would make great movies, but DC can't make movies of them because it would confuse the audience because they're different than the DC characters now. So I outsmarted myself. We can't do it. And again, I forgot the question. Did I answer it?
The other half was, what Marvel character could take him down?
Oh, hell, any Marvel character. Let me be honest, and you know I am the soul of integrity and honesty. If a Marvel writer writes the story, any one of our characters can take them down. If a DC writer writes the story, any one of their characters. It depends on who's writing the story, that's all.
Thank you.
Okay.
I was just wondering, you know, you're like a phenomenon. Like, you're one of those people that will be remembered forever. And you've done so much for the comic community. And I was just wondering, out of the millions of things that you've created in all of your life, what was your favorite? Like, what was your most memorable comic that you created?
You know, people ask me that, and I try to answer it. And sometimes I'll say, you're asking my most favorite comic book?
Yeah, like your most memorable one.
Memorable? I'll sometimes say The Silver Surfer. And then I think, gee, there was a story I wrote for Daredevil where he protects a blind cop. I really love that story. And then I'll think, I love the introduction of Galactus in this Fantastic Four with The Silver Surfer. And then I'll think, but boy, that first Spider-Man story. And I can't answer it because I've come to a terrible conclusion. I am my biggest fan, and I love everything I've got to tell you, people used to ask me how I could write so many stories so quickly. And it was simple. It's because I was also the editor. And because I'm a big fan of mine, whatever I wrote, I liked. So I didn't have to rewrite it. I didn't have to make any changes. And that's the way I am. I mean, I have to admit it. I really love the stuff I do.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Christina, and I just wanted to tell you that I really like all the characters that you've created for Marvel, and I just wanted to know, why did you even, when did you realize that you wanted to work for the comic book company and business?
When did I realize I wanted to work for the comic book companies?
Yeah.
Well, I got this job when I was about 17 in the comic book company. I was an assistant to Jack Kirby and Joe Simon, who were the fellows doing Captain America at the time. And I didn't think I wanted to stay in comics. That's why I changed my name. Everybody hated comics. People had no respect for comic books at all. People thought they're read by very young children or illiterate adults. And I was embarrassed to be doing comics, so I changed my name from Stanley Martin Lieber, which was a nice, normal name. I cut it into Stan Lee, and I figured nobody would know I'm doing this. But after a while, I began to realize that it really takes a bit of talent to do a comic, to do a good comic. And there's nothing to be ashamed of, because people love to read them, and it's a good way to tell a story. So I think in 1961 or so, I was about to leave the field because I was going to quit. Because I'd been doing it for about 20 years, and I felt I was getting nowhere. I loved comics by that time, but I wasn't getting anywhere. And that's when my wife told me, why don't you do one book the way you'd like to do it instead of the way your publisher tells you to? Get it out of your system, and the worst that'll happen, he'll fire you and you want to quit anyway. So that's when I did the Fantastic Four, and it violated a lot of the things that Martin Goodman wanted me to do. He wanted the heroes to have costumes, and they didn't have costumes. He never wanted too much dialogue. He said people don't want to read dialogue, they want to see action. Just put a lot of fight scenes. But I gave the Fantastic Four a lot of dialogue. And he said, don't bother worrying about characterization, just give them action. But I tried to make real characters. And the book sold, and then as I mentioned, we went on to the X-Men and other books. And that was when I decided I really love comics and I'm going to stay in the field, because now they started getting respect. What happened was, with the first Fantastic Four, we started getting fan mail, but most of it was written in crayon. A little bit later, the fan mail was written in pencil. Then later it was typed. Then after a while, the return addresses were from schools, and then later from colleges. Oh man, it was a great feeling, because we had never gotten fan mail before then. Sometimes I'd get a letter, and it would say, I want my dime back. A staple came out of the book. I'd hang it on the wall. I'd say, look, a reader wrote to us. So that's about it. If I answered your question, that was it.
We are going to have to stop there because we are going to be whisking Stanley away for now, but
I'm just getting started.
I know, but we're going to see him again. So help me thank Stanley.